Hi, I'm Michaela Weaver, and today I'm going to share with you 3 scientific reasons why New Year's resolutions that we set for ourselves with absolute resolve on the 1st of January tend to have fizzled out by the end of the month. And I know that was certainly true for me. When I was drinking alcohol regularly, I would drink pretty much every day. In fact, no, every day. I would drink every day of the week. The only times I wouldn't drink are when I was probably so hungover from the night before that I just couldn't face it. So I was a wine o'clock drinker for many, many years. It just sort of creeped up insidiously over the years. And so a bottle, maybe a bottle and a half, probably most nights of the week. And often at weekends, I would drink even more. And come January, I would make the promise to myself that I would at least take a break. I think I may have made it close to the end of January on a couple of occasions, but the problem was that straight away, as soon as I started drinking, I'd be back exactly to where I was, probably within maybe a week, maybe 2 at the outset. And often I would be drinking a little bit more. So the first reason that our New Year's resolutions fizzle out and fade is that we're trying to use willpower. Now, willpower is a method that is advocated by organisations like the AA. If you popped along to your physician or your GP and said, look, I think I've got a drink problem, they would suggest you cut down or maybe take a break, both of which are using willpower. And the problem is that willpower just runs out. Now, like everything that I talk about in terms of alcohol addiction and also our general well-being, we're working with or against our natural biology at all times. We've evolved, we're designed to work pretty much perfectly for what we actually need. But the problem is that things like alcohol actually hijack all that. They hijack our natural survival and our natural motivation mechanisms and all other kinds of things as well. So willpower is incredibly effective for us as human beings in short bursts. So if we need to go on a journey, if we need to do something, if we need to really galvanize ourselves for action, then willpower gives us that determination. It gives us the drive to do it. But it's only effective in short bursts and for short periods of time because it actually takes a huge amount of energy and it pushes us out of our comfort zone. And our comfort zone sits in our subconscious mind. And it's in our subconscious mind where the battle of the wills, which are internal, actually begin to get fought. And so our conscious mind decides that we're going to cut down or take a break from alcohol. Maybe we're going to completely change our behavior around alcohol this year. And maybe this decade, we're at the beginning of a new decade now, after all. So we'll decide that in our conscious minds. But our subconscious mind is the powerhouse. And it is 95% of the whole of our mind in terms of the energy and the power that it actually has over us. So what we have then is a battle between the 5% of our conscious mind that decides it's going to take a break or cut down or stop completely, and the 95% which has got everything that we've learnt, all of our behaviour patterns, all of our social conditioning and all the other stuff that's in there as well around alcohol. So much more to tell you, but effectively what happens is this cognitive dissonance, this disagreement in our mind is a very, very uncomfortable place to sit. And our natural biology wants what's called homeostasis, which is just kind of peace. It wants equilibrium. And so if you think about it, if you've got 2 things arguing away, that is not peaceful and that is not equilibrium. And so who's going to win the argument, the 95% big guy or the 5% little guy? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? And so the subconscious mind overrules in all different kinds of ways our conscious mind, and we just fold. Willpower just runs out. And so that's reason number 1. And it's highly significant. And again, as I said right at the beginning, it's the method that is advocated everywhere. And so, of course, when it doesn't work, we feel like a failure. So do not feel like a failure anymore, because now you know why it is that things just don't work out when you use willpower. Okay, so the second reason scientifically is something called fading effect bias. Now, if you've ever had a previous relationship other than the one you're in now, maybe an old boyfriend, or it could be even an old marriage, and as time goes on, you may look back at that and think, oh, maybe it wasn't so bad. We often hanker after our past loves, and the reason for that very often is something called fading effect bias. And once again, in terms of our natural survival, fading effect bias is actually very, very useful. Basically what it does is that in order to give us hope for the future, imagine we've been through an absolute trauma and we need to carry on, we need to keep living, we need to keep functioning, we want to prosper. If the negative memories were massively focused in our mind, that would affect our levels of motivation. And so what happens over time is that bad memories fade away quicker than the good memories of any event. And so all of the awful, hideous hangovers, maybe the problems that it's caused, alcohol that is, alcohol has caused and maybe still is causing in our relationships, that awful, awful night that we don't remember and we know dreadful things happened. And over time, once we've taken a break for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks maybe, we look back and we go, oh, it wasn't really that bad. Maybe it wasn't, maybe I've overreacted, maybe, I've exaggerated it in my mind. And now when I look back, perhaps it wasn't that significant. That is our natural biology kicking in. It doesn't mean that actually when it comes to alcohol, that those memories of the bad times aren't really, really valid. And so one of the things I teach in the Discover Sober program is to actually, we need to actually harness those negative memories and really bring them to the fold and be realistic about this. So our natural biology, just like willpower, it works for us in many, many, many ways, but we need to understand that our natural biology itself isn't perfect and it can be hijacked. And indeed, alcohol is superbly efficient at hijacking all kinds of aspects of our natural biology, which is why we get addicted to it. Which brings me on to the third scientific reason why our New Year's resolutions that we set ourselves with such good intention seem to just fizzle out. And that is a reason, or something, that the reason for that is something called euphoric recall. Now, maybe you went somewhere in the past and it was great, and you look back on it or you revisit it and it's not quite what you imagined it to be. It seemed so much bigger, so much better, so much brighter before. Well, that's euphoric recall. And when it comes to alcohol memories, the memories of the fun times, or the relaxing times, or the good memories that we have over alcohol, they are massively affected by euphoric recall. And this is what happens, very, very briefly. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is released by our brains whenever we are motivated by something that we need, that makes us feel good. And I say we need because that's why we have this mechanism biologically. And so what happens is dopamine is released when we have sex, which we need to survive. Dopamine is released when we have food that we enjoy, which we need to survive. Okay, so you get the picture. Things that we need in order to survive and for our natural well-being, we get a boost of dopamine released in our brains, and this sends signals. And what happens is that our brains, our little subconscious minds, in their wisdom, they connect the event. They learn, our subconscious minds learned from it, and we conclude setting a belief in situ in our subconscious minds that doing that must be good for us. Now, when it comes to our basic survival requirements like food and sex and shelter and beautiful scenery which makes us feel good and all these other things which give us joy, it has a really valid place. But what happens is that dopamine is released when we're drinking. And so when we look back on the situations that we're remembering when we were drinking, in effect, our memories themselves are drug-induced memories. It's like that we're really actually remembering something, not in its reality, but in a drugged sense. So it literally is, looking back on an alcohol memory, literally is like looking through rose-tinted glasses. And so, as you can see, for 3 extremely good reasons, the New Year's resolutions that we really, really want to keep, because we, as in our conscious minds, totally want to do this. We want to live more healthily. We want to stop relying on alcohol. We want to get rid of those awful, hideous hangovers and remorse and the guilt and, all of these things. We actually don't want them. And yet, our natural biology is hijacked by alcohol. And so the rose-tinted glasses, good memories, the fading negative memories, and the fact that willpower is not the right method to use are 3 reasons why all of our great New Year's resolutions, intentions, just fizzle out. Thank you for listening. More next time.